not worth the trouble it would take to hit you. You're not worth the powder it would take to blow you up.
Leonardo DiCaprio may be one of the most celebrated actors of his generation, winning Oscars and headlining billion-dollar films. But not everyone in Hollywood is clapping for him. Behind the scenes, DiCaprio has made enemies, actors and co-stars who claim he's arrogant, difficult, or simply unbearable to work with. Today, we're diving into the top 6 Hollywood stars who vehemently hate Leonardo DiCaprio, and trust me, number 1 will absolutely shock you. Before Leonardo DiCaprio became Hollywood's golden boy, before the Oscars, the yachts, and the environmental activism, he was just another hungry young actor clawing his way into the spotlight. The 1990s were his proving ground, and with his boyish good looks and undeniable charisma, DiCaprio shot to fame almost overnight. But as his star rose, not everyone in Hollywood was happy to see him succeed. In fact, some of his earliest rivalries came from actors who felt overshadowed, ignored, or downright irritated by him. One of the most famous early tensions was with Mark Wahlberg. The two were cast together in the gritty 1995 drama The Basketball Diaries. At the time, Wahlberg was trying to shed his Marky Mark rapper persona and prove he could be taken seriously as an actor. Meanwhile, DiCaprio was already being hailed as a generational talent after his Oscar-nominated role in What's Eating Gilbert Grape. According to behind-the-scenes reports, Wahlberg resented being treated like the new kid on set, while DiCaprio allegedly found Wahlberg's aggressive personality hard to stomach. The tension reached a point where, according to insiders, the two nearly came to blows during filming. Wahlberg himself later admitted in interviews that he and DiCaprio hated each other at first. They eventually buried the hatchet and went on to work together again in The Departed, but their initial hostility became a symbol of DiCaprio's early clashes. It was proof that his meteoric rise didn't just win him fans, it bred resentment among peers who felt left behind. Another name often tied to early DiCaprio conflicts is Claire Danes, his co-star in Baz Luhrmann's 1996 adaptation of Romeo plus Juliet. On screen, their chemistry was electric, the kind of timeless young love pairing that turned the film into a cult classic. Off-screen, however, the story was different. Danes reportedly found DiCaprio immature and difficult to work with, complaining that he constantly pulled pranks on set and lacked professionalism. For a young actress trying to navigate the pressures of fame, DiCaprio's antics were more irritating than charming. She later admitted that while she respected his talent, she struggled with his personality during filming. And then there's Jared Leto, another actor whose name has long been floated in discussions of early DiCaprio rivalries. Both were part of the same wave of young, pretty boy actors vying for leading roles in the 1990s. Hollywood has always thrived on rivalries, and the press loved to pit Leto and DiCaprio against each other. Rumors swirled that the two had clashed at industry parties, with Leto resenting how DiCaprio seemed to effortlessly snag roles that others auditioned tirelessly for. While neither actor has openly confirmed the feud, insiders have noted that the two have carefully avoided each other for much of their careers, a silent rivalry that speaks volumes. These early tensions all boiled down to the same thing: competition. DiCaprio wasn't just another actor, he was the chosen one, the face Hollywood wanted to plaster on every magazine cover. For peers like Wahlberg, Danes, and Leto, that meant constantly being compared, constantly being asked about Leo in interviews, and constantly living in his shadow. It's no wonder that many of them bristled at his presence. But the truth is, DiCaprio himself wasn't always the easiest person to be around. Young, cocky, and surrounded by enablers, he quickly developed a reputation for arrogance. In the mid-1990s, he was at the center of the infamous Pussy Posse, a hard-partying group of young actors that included Tobey Maguire, Kevin Connolly, and Lucas Haas. Their behavior at Hollywood clubs and premieres became legendary, and not in, a good way. To some, Leo wasn't just the talented golden boy. he was also an entitled brat who didn't know when to stop. That image, coupled with his rapid rise, made him a lightning rod for resentment. Some co-stars thought he was spoiled, others thought he was reckless, and a few simply couldn't stand the way every project seemed to revolve around him. In many ways, these early rivalries set the tone for his career. They showed that DiCaprio, no matter how talented, wasn't going to sail through Hollywood without making enemies. By the late 90s, after Titanic cemented him as a global superstar, the divide between those who adored DiCaprio and those who despised him only grew wider. For some, he was the ultimate Hollywood success story. For others, he was an ego with a face, and those early rivalries, with Wahlberg, Danes, and Leto, were just the beginning of a long list of stars who, for one reason or another, couldn't stand Leonardo DiCaprio. As Leonardo DiCaprio transitioned from a breakout heartthrob into a full-fledged Hollywood star, the intensity of working with him on major sets revealed new cracks in his relationships with fellow actors. Behind the curtain of glamorous premieres and magazine covers, several of his co-stars found DiCaprio less than pleasant. Whether it was his ego, his relentless perfectionism, or his playful but sometimes disruptive antics, a handful of actors walked away from working with him with more resentment than admiration. One of the most notable examples is Claire Danes, whose frustrations during Romeo plus Juliet we touched on earlier. While the two created one of cinema's most iconic young love couples, Danes didn't shy away from admitting that she found DiCaprio immature. At just 16 years old, she was laser-focused on her craft, while DiCaprio, 2 years older, was still enjoying pranks and late-night escapades with his Hollywood buddies. The contrast in their personalities caused tension. Years later, insiders revealed that Danes kept her distance from Leo during filming, avoiding his off-screen antics whenever possible. For her, it wasn't about disliking him as an actor. It was about clashing approaches to the work. Another example comes from Sharon Stone, who starred with DiCaprio in The Quick and the Dead, 1995. At the time, Leo was still a rising star, not yet the powerhouse he would become. According to reports, DiCaprio was not originally wanted by the studio for the role of the kid. Stone, who also produced the film, had to fight to keep him in the cast, even going so far as to pay his salary out of her own pocket. While Stone herself admired DiCaprio's raw talent, others on set weren't as kind. Crew members described him as cocky and sometimes difficult to direct, leading to whispers that he wasn't worth the trouble. This created a split dynamic. Stone saw his potential, but many around her reportedly rolled their eyes at his behavior. Then there was Russell Crowe, who also appeared in The Quick and the Dead. Crowe, known for his intensity and no-nonsense attitude, allegedly butted heads with DiCaprio on set. The two actors had very different styles. Crowe was methodical and brooding, while DiCaprio, still in his early 20s, leaned into energy and instinct. Rumors suggest that Crowe found DiCaprio's youthful exuberance irritating, and DiCaprio, in turn, wasn't fond of Crowe's gruff demeanor. The tension was never publicly explosive, but insiders claim the two simply didn't get along, and that dislike carried on long after filming wrapped. Fast forward to 2006, and another alleged clash came in the form of Djimon Hounsou, DiCaprio's co-star in Blood Diamond. The film, set during the Sierra Leone Civil War, required brutal physical and emotional performances from both actors. While the movie was a critical success, whispers emerged that Hounsou and DiCaprio didn't see eye to eye during production. Hounsou, known for his disciplined and professional approach, reportedly found DiCaprio's larger-than-life presence overwhelming. Some accounts even suggest that their disagreements escalated into heated arguments, though both actors have avoided confirming this publicly. Whether it was a clash of egos or simple creative differences, it added to the growing list of co-stars who found working with Leo difficult. Even Kate Winslet, who remains one of DiCaprio's closest friends today, initially struggled with him during the filming of Titanic. Winslet later confessed in interviews that she was intimidated by his confidence and sometimes annoyed by his antics on set. In the grueling conditions of James Cameron's massive production, tensions were high, and Winslet admitted she and DiCaprio occasionally snapped at each other. Of course, their friendship blossomed after filming, and they remain one of Hollywood's most beloved duos. But even in this case, the early days of working with him weren't all smooth sailing. And then there are the unconfirmed but persistent rumors surrounding Tommy Lee Jones, a Hollywood veteran known for his grumpy disdain toward younger, flashier actors. While Jones and DiCaprio have never starred together, industry chatter suggests that Jones has openly criticized DiCaprio behind closed doors, dismissing him as a pretty boy who got by on looks rather than skill. True or not, it's a narrative that has followed Leo since his youth. The idea that his physical appeal overshadowed his talent, creating resentment among older, more traditional actors. The pattern is clear. While DiCaprio's co-stars respected his talent, many of them struggled with his personality. Some found him arrogant, others immature, and still others simply incompatible with their own methods. For every Kate Winslet who came to adore him, there was a Claire Danes who kept her distance, or a Russell Crowe who bristled at his energy. What's fascinating is that these tensions didn't derail DiCaprio's career. In fact, they may have fueled it. Hollywood has always loved bad boys, and DiCaprio's reputation as both a brilliant actor and a cocky young star only added to his mystique. But behind the scenes, his co-stars weren't always clapping. Many were rolling their eyes, gritting their teeth, or quietly swearing they'd never work with him again. As DiCaprio entered the 2000s, his career skyrocketed even further, and the stakes grew higher. He was no longer the up-and-coming heartthrob. He was becoming a Hollywood heavyweight. And with that evolution came an entirely new set of rivals, powerful actors and directors who clashed with him on an even bigger stage. By the early 2000s, Leonardo DiCaprio was no longer just the fresh-faced star of Titanic. He was now the leading man of Hollywood, headlining films by Martin Scorsese, working with legendary directors, and earning a reputation as one of the most bankable stars in the industry. But with that kind of clout came bigger egos, bigger expectations, and bigger clashes. And some of the most powerful names in Hollywood began to quietly, and sometimes not so quietly, distance themselves from DiCaprio. One of the most vocal critics has been Russell Crowe. While their tension began as co-stars in The Quick and the Dead, the bad blood didn't disappear with time. Crowe reportedly bristled at DiCaprio's ascension into Hollywood royalty, especially since the two often vied for similar prestige projects in the early 2000s. In private conversations, Crowe allegedly dismissed DiCaprio as Hollywood's spoiled golden boy. Their differences came to a head when they reunited in Body of Lies, 2008, directed by Ridley Scott. On set, insiders described the atmosphere as icy, with Crowe's no-nonsense attitude clashing with DiCaprio's meticulous, almost obsessive preparation. Though the film was completed without public fireworks, sources say the two actors barely spoke off-camera and have not collaborated since. Another heavyweight with rumored tensions is George Clooney. Clooney, known for his charm and political activism, has reportedly taken issue with DiCaprio's lifestyle. Clooney, who transitioned from Hollywood playboy to respected elder statesman of the industry, has often criticized younger actors who remain stuck in perpetual adolescence. While Clooney has never directly named DiCaprio, he has made pointed comments about actors who think climate change can be solved between yacht parties. Given DiCaprio's reputation for globetrotting with supermodels on mega yachts while simultaneously campaigning for environmental causes, it's not hard to see who Clooney might have been referring to. Then there's Mel Gibson, whose disdain for DiCaprio has been whispered about for years. The clash reportedly stems from DiCaprio's refusal to work with Gibson as a director. When Gibson was shopping around projects in the early 2000s, DiCaprio allegedly passed on collaborating with him, citing Gibson's controversial reputation and personal scandals. Gibson, never one to mince words, reportedly fumed at being snubbed by an actor he felt was just a kid compared to his own legacy. Though neither man has spoken publicly about it, Hollywood insiders have long noted Gibson's sharp dismissals whenever DiCaprio's name comes up. Another intriguing case is Oliver Stone, the famously fiery director behind films like Platoon and Wall Street. Stone once expressed frustration at DiCaprio backing out of a planned Alexander the Great biopic. DiCaprio was initially attached to the project in the late 1990s, but after years of development struggles, he walked away. Stone eventually made Alexander with Colin Farrell in the lead role, a film that turned into a box office disaster. Some believe Stone still harbors resentment toward DiCaprio, blaming his departure for derailing what could have been his magnum opus. Perhaps the most surprising critic of DiCaprio, however, has been Clint Eastwood. The legendary actor-director has a reputation for being tough but fair, yet insiders claim he once dismissed DiCaprio as too soft for the kind of gritty roles Eastwood admires. Though DiCaprio starred in Eastwood's 2011 film J. Edgar, their working relationship was reportedly strained. Eastwood's old-school, fast shooting style clashed with DiCaprio's desire for multiple takes and deep dives into character psychology. While the film was completed without scandal, Eastwood has conspicuously avoided working with DiCaprio since, preferring actors who align more closely with his one-take philosophy. And then there's the shadow of Jack Nicholson, one of DiCaprio's idols. While the two starred together in The Departed, 2006, rumors swirled that Nicholson found DiCaprio's intensity exhausting. Nicholson, who famously improvised much of his role, reportedly grew irritated at DiCaprio's insistence on rehearsals and multiple takes. Though Nicholson has praised DiCaprio's talent in public, insiders suggest he walked away from the project, swearing he'd never share top billing with him again. What these clashes reveal is a fundamental divide. DiCaprio is a perfectionist. He immerses himself in roles, sometimes obsessively, pushing for take after take until he's satisfied. For younger co-stars, this could come across as arrogance. For older Hollywood heavyweights, it often read as unnecessary or even disrespectful. Legends like Eastwood and Nicholson came from an era where speed and instinct were king. DiCaprio, by contrast, represents the modern method actor archetype. That generational gap has left him at odds with some of the biggest names in the business. But it's not just about work. Personality also plays a role. DiCaprio's reputation as a hard-partying bachelor, surrounded by a rotating cast of supermodels, rubbed certain Hollywood veterans the wrong way. To stars like Clooney or Eastwood, who pride themselves on professionalism and restraint, Leo's off-screen antics reinforced their perception that he was more playboy than serious actor. And yet, despite these heavyweight critics, DiCaprio's career has only flourished. For every powerful name who swore they'd never work with him again, there was a Scorsese, a Tarantino, or a Christopher Nolan ready to put him at the center of their vision. Still, the list of legends who refuse to collaborate with him is a reminder that even Hollywood's brightest stars can't win over everyone. As DiCaprio's influence grew, so too did the divide between his admirers and his detractors. For some, he became the ultimate Hollywood actor, dedicated, talented, and transformative. For others, he remained the spoiled kid who never quite grew up. And the heaviest hitters in Hollywood were never shy about making their disdain known. When it comes to Leonardo DiCaprio, Hollywood has seen its fair share of rivalries, ranging from young co-stars annoyed by his pranks to seasoned veterans who bristle at his perfectionism. But of all the actors who have clashed with him, one name continues to rise to the surface again and again. A rival whose relationship with DiCaprio has been defined by jealousy, competition, and outright dislike. And that star is none other than Mark Wahlberg. The rivalry between Wahlberg and DiCaprio is one of Hollywood's most fascinating feuds because it began before either man had fully cemented himself as an A-lister. Back in the mid-1990s, Wahlberg was still in the process of shaking off his Marky Mark rapper persona, trying desperately to prove he was more than just a pop culture punchline. DiCaprio, on the other hand, was ascending fast, earning critical acclaim for What's Eating Gilbert Grape and preparing for the superstardom that would come with Titanic. Their paths collided in 1995 with The Basketball Diaries, a gritty drama about drug addiction. Wahlberg had lobbied hard for the role, while DiCaprio was already attached as the lead. From the very first table read, tension filled the air. Wahlberg reportedly felt that DiCaprio looked down on him as an untrained actor, a wannabe with no business in serious cinema. DiCaprio, for his part, bristled at Wahlberg's brash, street-tough persona, which he saw as unprofessional and disruptive. The animosity was so thick that the film's producers reportedly considered firing Wahlberg altogether. According to some insiders, DiCaprio even pleaded with them not to cast him. But Wahlberg stayed, and the tension bled into the film itself, giving their on-screen rivalry an authenticity that critics noticed immediately. For Wahlberg, the success of The Basketball Diaries was validation. For DiCaprio, it was proof that working with Wahlberg was more trouble than it was worth. Years later, the two would reunite on The Departed, 2006, Martin Scorsese's Oscar-winning crime drama. By then, both men had achieved Hollywood heavyweight status. DiCaprio as Scorsese's muse and critical darling, Wahlberg as a bankable star with blockbuster hits like The Italian Job and Four Brothers. Their reunion was billed as a Hollywood triumph, but behind the scenes, the old tension resurfaced. Wahlberg's explosive temperament clashed with DiCaprio's painstaking preparation. Wahlberg preferred to dive into scenes with raw emotion, while DiCaprio agonized over every line, every gesture. The result was two very different working styles that, once again, did not mesh. Though The Departed was a critical and commercial hit, Wahlberg was the only one of the cast to score an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor. DiCaprio, despite being the film's lead, was overlooked. Industry insiders whispered that Wahlberg gloated privately about the nomination, fueling speculation that the rivalry between the two men was alive and well.